Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this is the 2025 Honda Monkey. This is the 2025 Honda Trail 125, and although this one has 125 in the name, they actually both share an engine. They're from the same manufacturer. They're both in the same MiniMoto lineup. They're both designed to go somewhat off-road. But which one's best for you? There's actually quite a lot of differences in these, more than just looks. So in this video, we're gonna go over some of the differences between these two super fun little bikes. And if you don't think they're super fun, then yeah, they're probably not for you. But these two little bikes with the small CC engines measured in the decimal horsepower, in other words, under 10 horsepower, I think it's like 9.7 or whatever it is for horsepower. These two bikes are a whole lot of fun, and if you just want to enjoy motorcycling, these two bikes will actually help you do that. And that's why a bike very similar to this basically launched Honda in North America. Just a really fun little simple bike, and that's what these are about. But again, because these two are in the same lineup, same manufacturer, and seem to have somewhat similar uses, we're going to talk about which one's best for you. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. I'm filming here at Riverview Honda. There's no sign here because I'm filming outside right now, but Riverview Honda gives me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So if you're into like anything 2025, I'm gonna cover everything 2025 that I can this year. So make sure you hit subscribe, give us a like, give Riverview Honda a like for allowing me access. And again, every manufacturer I can come across, I'm gonna film 2025s this year. So if that sounds good to you, just follow along, hit subscribe. And the best way to help me is just watch till the end. That's all I ask of you. All right, let's get going with this review. So from a practical standpoint, if you just look at the specs of these bikes, they're very similar. And I always say on this channel, you can't buy a bike from a spec sheet because there's a lot of differences in there. Now, a lot of people will say this is just a styling exercise of the same bike. And while some of that's true, some of the styling differences actually make a difference to how you're going to use the bike. And then there's also some functional differences. Those different size tires offer a different type of ride. There's different suspensions on these. There's actually different transmissions on these, different final drive. There's a lot of differences that are gonna come into play when you drive these things. So we're gonna break down what those are. As far as a class, these are both MiniMotos from Honda. Basically, they're the only ones in this game. You've got, Kawasaki sells a MiniMoto to compete with the Grom, but nobody has the full lineup of MiniMotos because Honda's got that market captured. And the benefit with these is there's actually great aftermarket support for this general Honda lineup, whether it's the engine or whether it's other pieces. You do have aftermarket support, so you can go with the full motorcycle experience of customizing these up the way you want. Whether customization is a milk crate on the back like they used to be, or whether it's something different, you can really make these your own, but we're gonna take a look at what you start with and which one might be best for you. So if you've seen my channel before, you know I love to start with the front wheel. It can show you the manufacturer's intent for these bikes. So we're gonna talk about some of the differences here. First of all, you do have basically the same suspension travel. Now I say basically the same because if you're American and you measure in inches, it's 3.9 inches of suspension travel on both these bikes. Now in Canada, the millimeter mark, it's 100 millimeters on this one and 99 on the other one. I'll double check that. It's 100 on one and 99 on the other. So if the millimeter of travel makes a difference, we'll know which one's best for you. But basically the same suspension travel out front, but you go about it very differently. These are right side up forks here. You're gonna see that the other ones are upside down forks. As far as braking system, you do have an ABS ring. This has ABS labeled for you, but it is front ABS only on these bikes. So when you head off road, you can lock that rear wheel, use the rear wheel to steer if you want to. This one is spoked wheels, and it is a 17-inch wheel that is fairly narrow. So it is a 80 width tire. So what you have here with a 17-inch tire is less compression of the rubber for shock absorption, which can help off-road if you had a little bit, like the other bike might be better, but you have a better angle of approach. Usually on a dirt bike, you have a 21-inch front wheel. On a street bike, you have around a 17-inch front wheel. So that 21-inch, if it was a 21-inch, this is 17, but if it was a 21-inch, it's gonna give you a little better angle to approach some of those bumps. So in other words, if you hit a bump about this far up, 5-6 inches up, you can still kind of get over it on this one because it's a 17-inch diameter rim. The other one's got a 12-inch diameter rim. So that's gonna make a difference, but the other one's gonna give you some suspension as well through those fatter, meatier tires. A couple other things, both of these have metal fenders. This one's quite close. So if you're going through a lot of mud can cake up in here a little bit. That's why dirt bikes always have a lot more clearance. This is a little more street oriented, and you do see that it comes down a long ways with this rubbery type fender or a mud flap at the bottom. So this is going to keep you better protected, certainly on the road in rain conditions, but it does give you a little bit less mud clearance. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Let's go over to the Monkey now. I was wrong. This is the one that gives you the extra millimeter of travel. So if that millimeter of travel makes a difference, then absolutely this is the bike for you. But again, 3.9 inches on both, 100 millimeters here, 99 millimeters of travel over there, but this is an upside down suspension. So what's the differences? Essentially, not a lot in this class. This is what they use in superbike classes, that kind of thing. It gives you a stiffer fork tube up top. It gives you less unsprung weight down bottom. Probably it's just a styling exercise on this bike. I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of difference in suspension action here. You're not dealing with like crazy high-end components, and that's how they keep the price down. You'll notice the brake with the ABS ring, again, front ABS only, and then you got this 12-inch diameter wheel instead of a 17-inch diameter wheel, and this is 120 wide, where the other one is 90 wide. So again, if you approach a rock that's too big, at some point you get beyond the axle and it becomes just a sort of a bump stop, whereas the taller wheel can still get you over that. However, on anything smaller than that, and let's be honest, how big of bumps are you going to go over on these? You've got a little bit more suspension in the fatter tire there that can give you some tread absorption, so you can sort of air down a tiny bit on these, I guess, and get a little extra traction. So the other thing to keep in mind is this style tire tends to be a little more darty. It's why the Grom has those smaller tires. It's why street bikes and sport bikes have smaller wheels than adventure bikes, because it'll give you a little bit more of a darty kind of feel, where traditionally the larger tire gives you more stability at speed. So zipping around town, this one may feel a little bit more sporty, where this one may feel a little bit more stable. Now, it's not like any of them is unstable, and really the faster you go is where it matters, right? If you start going 300 kilometers an hour on this tire, you're gonna feel it more than on this tire, but let's be honest, you don't wanna be going 300 kilometers on either of these, so don't get towed behind a supercar to do that. But that's sort of what you will see, is this can be a little dartier, these ones can be a little bit more stable. The other thing you're gonna notice is this one has a shorter wheelbase. Center of this wheel to the center of that wheel is a little shorter, also leading to a little bit more darty feel, a little bit more instant handling, even at slower speeds, whereas this one's gonna offer you a little bit more stability at maybe lower speeds and certainly higher speeds with its bigger tire and longer wheelbase. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So take a look at the rear wheel. We're back on the Trail 125. So you got those 17-inch diameter wheels there. And then what you have here is no ABS in the rear. Again, spoked wheels here, alloy wheels on the other bike. And then the biggest difference you have is suspension. So this suspension here actually has less travel than the Monkey. So let's go in millimeters again, just to keep it simple. 3.4 inches is 86 millimeters. That's different than the 4 inches or 102 millimeters of travel on the Monkey. So you have dual shocks here. Now, one thing is, this one, neither one of these are 2-passenger bikes, but this one does have the adjustable preload. So I don't know if you can see that there. Let's see if we can zoom into that. It's a simple system. They've used it for years and years and years, but it has multiple levels of adjustable preload. So what this does is it will restore the ride height by bringing this upper back and allow you to load up the rear, load up the body. And so when you lose a little bit of suspension travel in here, remember you've got less here than on the Monkey. When you lose some of that, you can restore it back and stiffen it up with the preload. That's basically, it will change the feel of the bike a little bit, but again, every time I'm talking about difference in feel, we're talking very minute differences here. So that is a preload adjustable right there. And then of course, dual shocks on this. Let's take a quick look at the Monkey, and then we're gonna talk about the engine, transmission, and then we're gonna sit on these bikes and talk about the differences that way. So taking a look at the Monkey here, you've got a little more style here on this one here, the red coils there versus the other one. Again, the shock style is the same. There's dual shocks, one on each side. You can kind of see off the top here, that's this side and that one. I do want to show you the preload adjuster, which is not an adjuster on this bike. If we zoom right in, you can see that that little tab in the center of your screen that goes up and down does not have any steps to move to. So no preload adjustment here, but you have 4 inches of travel. So 100 and, how many millimeters was that? Let me just double check that for you, because I know you guys are going to care. Oh, so 4 inches of travel in the back is 102 millimeters. So this one's got 100 millimeters of travel out front and 102 out back, where the other one's got 99 millimeters of travel in the front and 86 out back. So not massive differences, but there is more suspension travel available here, but no adjustment. Taking a look back over on the Trail 125, remember these share an engine, same compression ratio, same engine, probably the exact same horsepower in them both, although they measure, like I said, in decimal points, so there's a slight different tuning, but you're talking basically the same exact thing. What's unique about the engine is it's laid forward. You rarely see it, usually on a parallel twin or something like that, you see it up like that, a V-twin you'll see sort of like that. There's lots of different engine styles, but this one is laid very flat, and what that does is not only are these light bikes, we'll talk about weight in a second, it also lowers the center of gravity. So that part is identical on both. You're gonna have the single cylinder engine sort of laid over there, but they do have a different transmission. So this one is a clutchless transmission, and this one has semi-automatic 4-speed. What that means is you shift sort of like a manual transmission. We'll show you that in a second, but there's no clutch. So you have to release the throttle, you can shift gears, and I think they're all up. All gears are up on the shifter on the other side. We'll talk about that. Yeah, actually, they are all up on this bike, but it's a lot like a regular transmission, but it's a 4-speed transmission, and it has some different styling here, and it's clutchless. So if that matters to you, this is your bike. It also has a kickstart right over here. Jumping back in, I went to move the camera and I forgot to point out one thing that I was going to point out from the very top, which is why I was on this basic angle here. You do have some underbody protection here. Now this is not like the heaviest duty stuff, but you've got some frame rails that run underneath, and you have a bit of a skid plate here. With the mud flap that goes below the skid plate, any stones you kick up are going to hit this skid plate and not your exhaust. Let's take a look at the difference on the Monkey. Taking the similar view here on the Monkey, you can see that engine laid over. You'll talk about the transmission in a second. No kickstarter here, but also no rails running down and no protections. Run naked here. So you've got maybe a little more cooling of your exhaust pipe. I don't know, does it matter? But what it is going to be is a little more vulnerable to debris and other kind of stuff. So if you are going to go crazy off-road, the other one does have some protection. This one does not have any protection from your exhaust hanging down the lowest right there. So we talked about the transmission on the other one. This one is traditional motorcycle, 5-speed, 1 down, then neutral, then 4 up transmission. So that's again on the other side. And you do use a clutch on this one. So a little bit more traditional motorcycle. It does have extra gear ratios. Now there's also a 1-tooth difference in the rear sprocket on both of these bikes. I don't know that that in itself is going to make a lot of difference. I wonder if that just compensates for the different sizing of the tires, but there is going to be a different final drive ratio. In other words, different rear sprocket is going to have one more tooth on one of the bikes, and you have the difference of a 5-speed transmission, so you can keep it a little bit more in the power band compared to a 4-speed transmission, which again, spread out, the final drive is going to be a little different, but again, 4 speeds to go highway speed or to go top speed to low speed, where 5 speeds to go top speed to low speed. Does that mean you're shifting more? Potentially. It also does keep you a little bit more in the power band on this 5-speed. This one's probably going to be a little bit sportier with that clutch and with the 5-speed transmission. So before I sit on these bikes, let me just point out, if you haven't figured it out already, I am a nerd. Most of the minute differences in these bikes aren't going to be hugely different. So for instance, when I talk about the different wheel sizes, traditionally a small wheel keeps you a little bit more immediate handling. Traditionally a larger wheel gives you a little bit more stability. I want to emphasize again that neither of these bikes are going to be unstable or super stable, right? They're just different. And same thing with the differences in like a 1 tooth on the rear sprocket or 4 gears versus 5 gears. There are differences there, but they're not massive differences. And the seats are the same. This is about a 31.5-inch seat height here. That's 30.6, so it's about an inch and a bit less. But again, as a 6-footer, I'm reaching the ground easily. No matter how big or small you are, you're gonna fit on these bikes. If you're larger, I don't know if I'm larger, but 6 feet is probably big for these kinds of bikes, you can see that I still fit just fine. Got my brake lever here, got my shift lever there, super, super light clutch lever over here. But this is my seating position here on the Monkey, wherever I want to have my foot resting. And it's actually quite comfortable. You've got the exhaust that comes up, but it has a heat shield there. I don't feel it when I'm like this. If I put my leg back like that, I guess I can touch it a little bit, but in a normal position, totally fine. Again, the seat is a little long, so you have the ability to move around. I can go right back on the seat if I want and create some more space. I can go right forward if I want and get some different space. So there'll be a spot that's comfortable for you and you can move around. So it's actually pretty good. This seat has a lot of cush on it. You can move front to back and you can be comfortable. Now, this one is a little bit lower, about an inch and a bit lower seat height, but seat shape makes a difference. You're gonna see when I sit across this one, it doesn't look a whole lot different. It actually feels taller. So this seat, because of the shape, feels tall. Now if I sit forward on the narrow part, easily on flat footing. If I come back on the wide part, I can't go back as far as the other one, but then it actually feels quite wide. This bike feels taller to me, even though the seat height is supposedly a little bit lower. And there you go, same manufacturer, same spec wherever they measure from, but it just feels different because of the width of the seat. Now, that one is still comfy and cushy. This one feels firmer and just, you know, maybe it feels like it might be wider, but it's probably just about the same. Seating position here, I feel like I've got a little bit more room with my legs, just this different style exhaust is different. I do have my heel slightly in contact with the kickstarter that this one has, where that one, my heel was free to move. This one has a shifter and a heel and a toe shifter. We're gonna show you those differences in a second here, so you can ride a little differently there. Which one are you more comfortable on? I don't know. They're kind of the same. There's not a whole lot of difference. So again, is one different than the other? Absolutely. You'll have to decide which one is best for you. But for MiniMotos, perfectly fine with a 6-footer on them. If you're shorter, not a problem. If you're taller, you're still probably going to be fine. This one, again, no clutch lever worth pointing out. So let's show you the shift levers from there, and then we'll continue on and talk about who these bikes are for. So taking a look here at the Honda Monkey, which you can see the name right up there, you can see the shift lever, very traditional. This is what you would expect in a normal motorcycle. As far as the foot pegs here, I do want to point them out here. Rubber on top, it doesn't feel like that's easily removable. I'm sure it is, but these seem more street-oriented pegs than you'll see in a second on the other one. But again, normal shift lever here, no heel toe shifter, just a little shift lever. And again, 5-speed transmission here on the Monkey. Over here on the Trail 125, that's just the naming is just above there as well, you can see the difference in the shifter. So again, no clutch lever on this. You still shift this up or down with your toe, but you have the option of using your heel to go up and your toe to go down. So you can keep your foot on top of it at all times. What that means is that I don't encourage you to drive with flip-flops, but if you do, you're not wearing out your toe. You can go down and down to go up and down. So that is a difference. And again, 4-speed, no clutch versus a 5-speed with the clutch. So that's one of the differences. The other thing you're gonna notice here is a lot deeper lines here in the rubber and a lot different, I don't know, let's try to zoom in and see if I can show you without taking the, I don't wanna take the rubber off here. So I'm on the, not the best angle, but maybe I can lift this up. Oh, that's the other thing I was gonna tell you. These are a lot heavier, but see if you lift it up, you got the teeth around there. You've got more teeth on here. These are much bigger foot pegs, and the rubber seems to be quite easily removable. I could probably pull it out, but I don't want to do that right now. So larger foot pegs, and the spring on these is much stiffer. Why? I don't know. Does that make a difference? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The other thing you have over here is a standard center stand. That standard center stand is going to allow you to pack some luggage on this bike, which we should take a quick look at. So I'm fully wide angle here. I'm going to go into the standard angle behind the seat here. This luggage rack is massive and it's rated to hold 44 pounds, which the average luggage rack that I deal with is like 8 pounds, 10 pounds, 12 pounds, maybe 20 pounds. This is 20 kilograms, so 44 pounds, and it is absolutely massive. Now, why do you need a center stand with this? Because right now the bike is leaned towards me. If you set it upright, it's super stable, even on like dirt areas. And as you load stuff and go back maybe to your tent and come back and load stuff or go back to your house, if you're on a soft ground area, the center stand is going to keep things more stable and allow you to sort of load it level. This has a lot of practicality and a lot of options for you. You can see there's sort of some areas to just tie regular stuff down. There's some drilled areas so you can get different style boxes. Like I said, milk cart, if you want to go original looking like the old styles, you could do that as well. But way more practicality on this bike than on the Monkey. Let's just show you the back of the Monkey. Taking a look at the Monkey, you've got a little bit larger fuel tank. That's worth pointing out, very small difference there, but a little bit larger fuel tank and no more practicality. So in theory, this one should have a little bit more range if it's got more gears and a tiny bit bigger fuel tank. But do the tires make up for that? Does the gearing make up for that? We're not really sure. I would assume this one probably has just a little bit more range. It's also a little bit lighter than that one there, but that's hard to point out with any certainty. Again, you're dealing with very small engines that are going to be working, and they're made to work. Honda has huge reliability in their small engines that run basically full out all the time. So no practicality, no extra stuff here. Let's talk about which bike is best for you. So choosing the best off-road MiniMoto for you could be difficult, but let's start with the very basics. This one is more practical. If you're viewing of taking your MiniMoto on longer trips or day trips even, or even camping, or even overnight camping, you've got the practicality to do that here. If you're taking this as a pizza delivery bike or something like that, this one's gonna be better. If you're taking this you know, on just random trips to random countries, maybe stops on, or you know, small town to small town, coffee shop to coffee shop, that kind of thing, this one is gonna be good for that because you can take stuff back back with you in the way that you could mount it to the bike, and you could mount some good sized stuff here. So to me, there's a little bit more practicality in this, and those larger wheels to me are going to be a little bit more road friendly on those, you know, country roads, that kind of thing. And that's my general opinion. I may not be right on that. I'm willing to have you guys comment differently in the comment section. This one to me is more geared to exhilarating fun all the time. Now, when we talk about exhilarating fun, let's remember none of these have any kind of real horsepower numbers, but the immediacy of the handling, the fun look of it, right? It's not about practicality. So zipping around town, and if you want to take some stuff, you throw a backpack on, that's how you're going to do it. If you want just a little run around town, get places, that kind of thing, take your backpack along if you need to take stuff, this one's probably the best one for you over this one, which is designed to take a little bit more. I think if I was going to go on a longer trip and wanted to do some fun camping and take the really scenic routes and go down just some dirt roads, this one would be great. But I do think this one, both in town and out of town, is going to have a little bit more fun handling. Now, there will be an argument that this one, because of its 5-speed transmission and clutch, is a better pre-motorcycle motorcycle. In other words, if you want to learn to drive a manual transmission, you should get this bike. And there's some truth to that. What I will say is, even without the clutch, if you're not used to driving with a clutch on a motorcycle, you can get this one. You still have to release the throttle to shift, which is exactly like a motorcycle. The only thing you're not doing is releasing that clutch, which in first gear takes a tiny bit of practice. But if you can master this bike, you're going to move to a bike with a clutch without any issues anyways. It's going to take a tiny bit of adjustment when you get to that bike, whereas this bike, you know, it's probably not as much of adjustment, but every clutch is a little different anyways. So if you want to for sure learn the clutch, if you want to have the extra gear ratios and you want to practice that, then this is a great little bike for you. If you don't care about the clutch or don't want the clutch, this is going to be a good option for you as well. So there are some options in here, depending on what you want to do, of which one could be best for you. Both of these are single passengers. The Grom does have a 2-passenger option, but to be very honest, I don't know how much you want to take 2 passengers on bikes that are this small and this low powered. I think they're just fun as they are. If you want to take a passenger, you could on the Grom. These ones are single passengers. So hopefully that helps you decide which of these off-road mini motos are best for you. And if you're familiar with these bikes, fill the comments. Tell us all the fun stuff you've done with these things, because there's a lot of fun things you can do. Now, one other thing I will point out, if you wanted, for instance, some skid plate on this, you can get some aftermarket parts. There's pieces and parts where you can kind of mix these up. You can probably get a little rear rack on the back, so you can mix these up a little bit and make one more practical, make the other a little bit more, whatever you want it to be. But those are the differences. There you go. I want to thank Riverview Honda for giving me access, and if you made it this far, I really appreciate you, and we'll talk to you in the next one.